Hey, Beastisa! Welcome to the final week of the VDL. This week we're playing against the crushing Silvallies. This week's matchup is definitely very important because it's going to decide whether or not I can make playoffs. So here we can see is the current standings of everyone in the VDL, and here's my specific division. If you can see that I'm currently second, and if I win, I am guaranteed to get second in my division, which means I'm guaranteed a playoff spot. However, if I lose, there's a chance that I can get to third in my division. And if I get third in my division, then that would mean that I would be in a wild card race, which would mean that I have a very little chance to make the playoffs. However, it will be very random and based on what happens in other matches and will be completely out of my control. So basically, if I win, I have complete control of whether to make playoffs, and if I lose, it'll be completely dependent on other people's performances. So hopefully I can get the win and guarantee my playoff spot. So with that, let's look at this week's matchups. So here's the matchup. My team is on the left and my opponent's team is on the right. The first thing I'd like to look at is the fastest Pokemon on both of our teams, which is Crobat on my team and Spectrier and Tapu Koko on their team. What we can see is that we have a speed tie, which is always a concerning thing when you're trying to outspeed your opponent's team. In addition to that, they also have the Pokemon Raichu, which has an ability, when in electric terrain, it doubles its speed. And so if you do Tapu Koko and Raichu, it has virtually 220 base speed, which means it's guaranteed to outspeed my entire team. And having two electric Pokemon that can both possibly outspeed my Crobat definitely makes me feel concerned of trying to outspeed my opponent's team. So with that, we can see my slowest two Pokemon, Amoonguss and Slowking. We can see that they actually underspeed my opponent's entire team. And so with that, I definitely feel that Trick Room seems like a better option this week than possibly Tailwind or using my faster Pokemon. So with that, let's go with the specific team I decided to bring. So here's the team I decided to bring. So the first thing I would like to note before I go into any specific Pokemon is that I decided to bring significantly fewer Protects than I normally do. I only have 2 Pokemon with Protect, and normally I'm closer to 5 Pokemon with Protect. This is definitely a little bit of a bold decision, and hopefully I don't get punished for it. However, I definitely feel like most of my Pokemon definitely want multiple of these moves that they have. So let's go with some of the specific sets I decided to bring. So first is let's look at the top 2 Pokemon. So Salazzle has Fake Out, and not only does it have Fake Out, its actually base speed is faster than any Pokemon my opponent's team that has Fake Out. So I should be able to Fake Out any Pokemon on their team except for Spectrier, because Spectrier is a Ghost Pokemon. And so with that, Slowking kind of needs to be able to handle an attack or a move from Spectrier. So I decided to make Slowking incredibly defensive this week. I actually make it guarantee survive a Shadow Ball from Choice Specs Spectrier. In addition, I gave it Mental Herb to be able to overcome a taunt from Spectrier, because Spectrier might use taunt instead of a Shadow Ball to deal with Slowking specifically. In addition to it being very bulky and having the Mental Herb, because it's so bulky, I decided I feel like it needed some way to kind of increase its damage output. So I gave it Calm Mind to increase its damage output, but also it increases my special defense, which makes Slowking even harder to kill. And then finally gave it Slack Off, because since I'm very bulky, I might as well just make that even harder to deal with. And I gave it a way to recover some of its HP. Salazzle, other than its Fake Out, Sludge Bomb and Flamethrower actually are both very good coverage to my opponent's team. Sludge Bomb specifically, which is poison coverage in general this week, actually is very good. Only 2 Pokemon on my opponent's team that actually have any resistance to poison type Pokemon, which is Mawile and Spectrier. And so overall, it's very good coverage. Next, we can see the next row. I think Dragalge is the next Pokemon to focus on, which is going to be my main offensive threat this week. And I gave it an Assault Vest because my opponent's team is very specially oriented, and Dragon coverage and Poison coverage hits everything on their team for at least neutral, except for Mawile specifically. And so I felt like I needed my Dragalge to hit Mawile for at least some amount of damage, so I gave Thunderbolt as its 4th move to hit Mawile. It's not going to do a huge amount of damage to Mawile. However, the opponent's team having Tapu Koko does give the possibility of electric terrain being up. And if electric terrain is up, then Thunderbolt can actually do very good damage. Next to that, we have Skuntank. Skuntank, I have an Expert Belt, so that specifically guaranteed a KO on Spectrier with Crunch or Sucker Punch. Otherwise, it could have been a roll depending on how bulky Spectre you are. And so I decided to give it Crunch because I didn't, and Sucker Punch because I do want a way to attack even if they switch out the Spectre or Spectre has some sort of non-damage move like Substitute, which could be very annoying to deal with if my only offensive move is, in fact, Sucker Punch. And then I gave Play Rough, which is very good coverage this week. Overall, Fairy is actually very good into my opponent's team. And then Flamethrower, specifically, mainly to deal with Mawile, but also is kind of a good way to deal if my opponent's team becomes a little bit too physically bulky. Next, we see I gave Pixie Plate Wheezing with double Fairy coverage. Like I said previously, Fairy coverage is very good. There's actually only one Pokemon on my opponent's team that resists Fairy coverage, and it's Mawile, and I gave Flamethrower to deal with that. I gave it Neutralizing Gas, which I'm unsure if that's definitely actually optimal. My opponent doesn't have a huge number of abilities I want to shut off, and I do like my abilities, specifically Regenerator from Slowking and Amoonguss, and Adaptability from Dragalge, because without adaptability, Dragalge is very poor damage output. However, I do think that being able to get rid of Sheer Force on Mawile, being able to prevent electric terrain from being set up, could be very relevant, and obviously preventing the special attack boost if Spectre gets a KO could be pretty relevant as well. But other than that, Slowking or Weezing's mainly there to hopefully hit some Dazzling Gleams or Strange Teams and get some pretty good damage. Finally, I decided to go with Amoonguss. So this Amoonguss set is pretty standard for the most part, which is Rage Powder, Spore, and a damaging move. However, instead of Protect, I decided to go with Pollen Puff. The reason why I decided to do this is because Pollen Puff seems very good with Dragalge and Slowking because they're very bulky this week. In addition to this, since my Slowking doesn't really learn Protect and my Dragalge doesn't really learn Protect, protecting when they're next to him doesn't seem like a good decision because if they just target into my slot next to it, it ends up not doing anything. And so I think a good way to kind of mitigate that is kind of pollen puffing into my Pokemon next to it. And if Mungus takes a hit, so be it. But if they target my opponent's my ally Pokemon, then that Pokemon is likely to survive. And like I said previously, poison damage good, so Sludge Bomb does very good damage. It has a chance to it's guaranteed 2-shot Tapu Koko. Pollen Puff does very good damage into Raichu actually, but overall the main idea is Amoonguss is going to support, and I gave it the Kobo Berry actually to specifically deal with a physical Tapu Koko because it learns Brave Bird, and Brave Bird actually does very good damage to my entire team. I have no flying resist, and I did not want Amoonguss to be randomly one-shotted by a physical Tapu Koko. So with that, that's my team, and let's get into the match. So here we are for match 1. Looking at my opponent's team, they pretty much have what I would have expected, which is Raichu, Tapu Koko, Mawile, because I think it's pretty good. Against me, Spectre, Meowstic with Prankster, and then finally Vaporeon, which is technically their most raw Pokemon this season. So looking at my side, I think that because they brought pretty much what I expected, I should probably just go with my Game 1 game plan, which is Slowking and Salazzle as the lead, and then Dragalge in the back, and then Skuntank. I'm considering whether or not it's worth bringing Amoonguss instead of Skuntank. However, with Raichu, Meowstic, and Spectre all being weak to dark coverage, I do think that Skuntank is the correct decision. My opponent leads Meowstic Spectre, which is not a surprising lead. It's definitely one of the leads that I was prepping against when I kind of came up with my game plan, because I have Salazzle and Slowking. So with this, I can have a guaranteed Trick Room up on turn 1 because there's Spectre cannot stop me from setting up Trick Room, and I can fake out Meowstic because it technically could do something like Imprison Trick Room to prevent me from setting up Trick Room. And Spectre could have Taunt instead of trying to deal damage to my Slowking, which is why the Mental Herb is what I felt it was necessary this week. So they end up just snarling into me instead, which is not necessarily expected. It's a little bit annoying because my damage output on Slowking is pretty low. However, I'm pretty happy that I took so little damage with the Slowking on turn 1. So here, I think it's very clear to just Calm Mind with the Slowking because they have 2 special attackers in front of me and I have a lot of health. And here, I decided to just flamethrower into Meowstic. I think it's possible I probably could have switched in Skunk Tank, because there's a good chance that if I take damage, it'll be Dark, Ghost, or Psychic coverage. However, I decided to stay in, get the Calm Mind up with Slowking. They end up Psyching into the Salazzle spot, killing the Salazzle, and if I would have switched into Skunk Tank, it definitely would have been really helpful there, because I would have got a free switch in and have Fake Out for later in the game. Here, the Slowking takes a Shadow Ball, and I take that pretty well. And so here, I just decide to bring in the Skunk Tank, because Skunk Tank does have super effect damage to both of my opponent's Pokemon. And so here, I decided to just slack off to make sure that Slowking can, take additional hits. And I decided to go for the Meowstic, because there's a good chance the Spectre is going to probably switch out or possibly Protect, and I don't think Meowstic's likely to carry Protect. So we get the slack off, and now Slowking is in very good position to kind of be able to survive the rest of the game. The Crunch kills the Meowstic, and I get the crit, which completely doesn't matter because Meowstic's not particularly bulky. And they end up Will-O-Wisp-ing into my Skunk Tank, and that's definitely going to dramatically decrease the damage output of Skunk Tank, which is concerning, but I'm feeling pretty good right now because of just Slowking being very hard for my opponents to kill. So my opponent brings out Tapu Koko, gets the Electric Drain up. So I'm checking the number of turns and we see there's 2 left. I decided to just Sludge Bomb into the Tapu Koko and Crunch into the Spectre. The Crunch should do about 50% damage even with the burn, and then the Sludge Bomb should do probably 80% damage to the Tapu Koko with the Slowking, assuming unless it's very bulky. We get the Sludge Bomb off into the Tapu Koko, and does a little bit more than I was expecting, closer to 90%. We get the Crunch into the Spectre, and the Spectre reveals that it has the Colbur Berry. And so instead of doing, about 50% damage, I do a little bit less. And my Skunk Tank ends up taking the Thunderbolt, which does quite a bit of damage, and then the Snarl double connects again, and it gets Skunk Tank within burn range. It definitely would have felt pretty good if the Skunk Tank was able to survive this turn if the Snarl would have missed, but I'm still feeling pretty good because, as we can see, the Slowking is taking very little damage in any hit. And so now we have Dragalge as our last Pokemon. And so here, there's definitely a couple options. I decided to just Calm Mind and go for some damage. And the big question is, should I attack the Tapu Koko spot or the Spectre shot? And with how bulky Spectre looks like it's going to be, I think that I probably should just go for some damage on the Tapu Koko, but I think I end up deciding to go for the damage on Spectre instead, so hopefully to get a 2-shot with the Dragon Pulse. They switch out Tapu Koko into the Raichu spot, and they also end up protecting Spectre, so I end up making the worst possible call that turn. If I would have hit the Raichu, I feel like I would have been in commanding position. However, I still feel pretty good because my Slowking is very specially bulky, and I have 2 special defense boosts currently because of Calm Minds. And I'm currently at neutral special attack, though. So Trick Room's up, and so I think that my stay play is just to slam Trick Room here and go for some damage onto the Raichu spot. So Raichu reveals an Electro Ball, which is definitely concerning. However, I don't think that does more damage than Rising Voltage would do. So it's a little bit surprising they brought it instead of Rising Voltage. They get the, another Snarl off. And we get the Sludge Bomb into the Raichu, which is a clean 2-hit KO. And we get the Trick Room up. And so here, I think the play is just to slack off to get out of range of, a double up and go for either some damage on Spectre or a kill on Raichu. I decided to go for the kill on the Raichu spot because I would like to kind of get to a 2v1. They end up protecting the Raichu. And we get the slack off up. And the Sludge Bomb gets blocked by the Protect. And a Shadow Ball goes into the Slowking spot. And I get crit. Definitely very sad because if I didn't get crit this exact turn, I feel like I'm in a commanding position because next turn I get to Dragon Pulse into the Spectre, Sludge Bomb into the Raichu, guarantee a KO on the Raichu, and then the turn after Spectre should be a one hit away from being killed with that. I definitely think that the crit was a huge deal because I was at +3 special attack and our special defense, and all three of my opponent's Pokemon are special defensive. But we end up getting the kill on the Raichu. And Shadow Ball goes into the Dragalge. And I take it pretty well, even though their Spectre's at +1 because of my Assault Vest. And so here, there's technically an out. If I can critical hit a Draco Meteor into the Spectre spot, I do think I win this game. And that's my current out. Nothing else is going to kill the Spectre. And because I have the minus special attack from the Snarls, I do in fact need a crit. If there was no special defense drops, depending on the Spectre's bulk, I could have a chance of being able to, maybe win with a crit on like a Dragon Pulse instead. But it's definitely the only out here is Draco Meteor and Spectre hope for a crit. So Draco Meteor connects with the Spectre spot. And we do quite a bit of damage, but we don't get the crit. And the crit definitely would have gotten us the KO and would have gotten us the win because Tapu Koko can be dead from a single Sludge Bomb. But they end up getting the win here. So let's get into Game 2. So here we are for Game 2. So before we start, one thing that's noteworthy is I get guaranteed a playoff spot before this match. I ended up being after my team preview. And I decide I'm just going to bring the other Pokemon because I feel like it. I didn't really have any reason to want to bring Weezing, but I just felt like it was a fun bring. And I don't really have reason to bring the Amoonguss over the Skuntank instead either. I just kind of felt like bringing the other Pokemon because I didn't feel like it was that necessary to kind of come up with a cohesive game plan. And so here they bring Meowstic and Mawile, and I bring the Weezing Slowking. And so here, I definitely think I made a dumb decision. I'm like, I can take a Psychic, but I know Meowstic is Life Orb, so there's no reason for me to have done anything with Weezing. I should have protected it or switched it out. And then I set up Trick Room. And so here we see the Psychic goes into the Weezing and one-shots it, killing it, which definitely annoying. Probably was just a dumb decision on my part. I could have, protected so that... And then the Mawile builds Intimidate, which I was definitely surprised on. I was expecting it to be Sheer Force, because Sheer Force definitely seems better against my team, because that just increases its damage output notably. We did taunt into the Slowking, and so Slowking reveals its Mental Herb, and this is kind of one of the big reasons why I thought Mental Herb was necessary this week. But we get up Trick Room, and so here I decide that I'm gonna bring in the Amoonguss. I was considering bringing in the Dragalge instead of the Amoonguss, but I don't want to take a Psychic because that's the only Pokemon that can reasonably do damage into the Mawile because of the way in which my team is composed. So here, I definitely think I probably make a bad decision. I think I probably should have doubled up into the Meowstic here, but I decided to Spore into the Mawile instead of put Calm Mind. The reason why I should double up in Meowstic is because, Meowstic does quite a bit of damage into my Amoonguss, even though my Amoonguss is actually max HP, max special defense, and a beneficial special defense nature. However, we do get the Calm Mind up, and we get, sport into the Mawile. And here we can see how much, stab Psychic with Life Orb does, because this does about 75% to my Amoonguss, and Amoonguss is known for being a very bulky Pokemon, and I have no defensive bulk investment, only special defensive bulk. So here I switch out the Amoonguss to get, so I can get a Regenerator off, and Sludge Bomb into the Meowstic, hoping to kill the Meowstic when I'm at +1 special attack with the Slowking. So we switch out the Amoonguss into the Dragalge. The Sludge Bomb goes into the Meowstic, and sadly Meowstic survives that, and sadly the Mawile also wakes up this exact turn. Definitely a little bit sad that they got the one-turn sleep, because I definitely could have used that. The Psychic goes into the Slowking, which Slowking takes very well with the beneficial special defense, or the plus special defense. So here we just Thunderbolt into the Mawile, and go for the Sludge Bomb onto the Meowstic. I don't have any other options because I'm taunted. Meowstic imprisons, which I don't know why they did that. Imprison doesn't do anything while it's when it's dead. So maybe they have something like a. Actually, I don't know. I don't know why they imprison. I can't think of a situation. Maybe they're hoping that Slowking has like Shadow Ball and they have Shadow Balls in prison or something. But anyways, the Psychic Fang into my Dragalge. But if Dragalge was Sheer Force, that would be an easy 2-hit KO. However, it not being that definitely helps me a little bit. And so here they have the Spectre, and I honestly don't have a great situation here because I want to just Draco Meteor to the Spectre spot. However, I can't really risk Dragalge here because I can't really kill Mawile if Dragalge dies, because Amoonguss pretty much does 0 damage, and Slowking literally does 0 damage to the Mawile. So I decided to switch out to save the Dragalge for later. Oh no. I just trying to go for the Draco Meteor into the Spectre spot, and the Sludge Bomb into the Spectre. Actually, I lied. They protect the Mawile, which is reasonable. And they also protect the Spectre. I probably should have checked the number of turns of Trick Room. I think this was definitely a mistake in hindsight, because I did this play and that didn't really consider the fact that Trick Room was ending. And so if I knew Trick Room was ending, I probably would have switched out. But without that, now I'm definitely not in good shape, because, I have 2 Pokemon that, are definitely slower than my team, don't have great damage output, and Dragalge, if it gets hit by dies, then I'm pretty much guaranteed to lose the game because of the Mawile. And so here, the only decision is Sludge Bomb, and I can't hit the Mawile, so I have to like there. So we bring in the Amoonguss, and they snarl into us. Slowking gets stacked down to neutral special attack. And the Psychic Fang goes into the Amoonguss spot, and Amoonguss survives, but does not have enough damage to take really anything else. And the Sludge Bomb does very minimal damage into the Spectre. So here, the only really hope I can have is just hoping that Spectre takes Snarl instead of Shadow Ball, and that I can Rage Powder the Psychic Fang from the Mawile and can survive a Snarl. Because I need Trick Room up, or this game is definitely over. So we get the Rage Powder up, and they end up Shadow Balling, which kills the Amoonguss. And then now they have a clean taunt into my Slowking. Definitely one of the big things that I can tell here is that this is one of the big downsides of having Galarian Slowking versus normal Slowking. Because if I had normal Slowking, I would 100% would have brought in Oblivious this week, which is not a possible ability of Slowking, because a Galarian Slowking. And Oblivious prevents taunt. So then instead of having to run Mental Herb, I could have run something like Life Orb, which would have been really nice, and also all these taunts would have been gone. Not Life Orb, Leftovers instead. However, because of the downside of Slowking, or Galarian Slowking having Curious Medicine, which is a terrible ability, I'm kind of in a situation where, I have a little bit awful items. But here, I just have this Thunderbolt into Mawile, hope I can kill Mawile and Sludge Bomb. If I can somehow, if I crit a Lightning Thunderbolt into the Mawile here, kill the Mawile, there's a chance, assuming that Drugalgi doesn't get killed here before. We see the Psychic Fang ends up going into the Drugalgi, and it does survive, so I do have non-zero chance to win this game. If I crit here, end up not getting the crit, and they end up getting there. You know, now definitely no way to out. I don't have any, I can't, I'm still taunted, and the Sludge Bomb does very little damage to the Spectre. However, I could theoretically grind through the Spectre if I wasn't taunted, but I am taunted. And so here, I just confirm that I am taunted. But yeah, I just gotta click Sludge Bomb and die. So definitely a little bit sad. I definitely think that I could have played a little bit cleaner game 2. Could have kind of picked a little better Pokemon game 2. However, my opponent played pretty well. I definitely think that I definitely, you know, liked my sets in general, but you know, kind of, you know, lost to some things that I probably could have played around a little bit better. But in the end, I'm okay with the loss, especially because I end up making playoffs anyways. So hopefully y'all enjoyed, and hopefully you'll watch my playoff match. Thank you for watching.